The alien council of Zorith gathered in their grand chamber, a vast room filled with glowing crystals that pulsed softly with light. The air was thick with arrogance as Kel, the leader of the council, stood before his peers. He held up a holographic display showing images of Earth, its cities, its people, and its armies. His lips curled into a sneer as he spoke. "This is what we're invading. Their weapons are toys compared to ours. Their ships are nothing but tin cans floating in space. It will be over before it begins." The other council members laughed, their voices echoing through the chamber like cruel music. They had seen the reports. Earth's military relied on outdated guns and tanks, their technology laughably primitive compared to the advanced weapons of Zorith. Even their attempts at space exploration were clumsy and small-scale. To the Zorathians, humanity seemed like an ant colony waiting to be stomped out. But not everyone shared the same confidence. Viral, a younger member of the council, sat quietly in his seat, his brow furrowed. He had studied Earth's history more closely than the others. He knew about their wars, their ability to adapt, and their stubborn refusal to give up even when all hope seemed lost. Something about this mission didn't sit right with him, but he kept his doubts to himself. Speaking out against Kel would only invite ridicule, or worse. Meanwhile, on Earth, life went on as usual. In a quiet military base outside Chicago, Captain Ryan Carter leaned against a jeep, sipping coffee while watching his team run drills. Beside him stood Lieutenant Emily Dawson, her sharp eyes scanning the soldiers for any mistakes. The sun warmed their faces as birds chirped in the distance. It was a peaceful morning, far removed from the horrors of war that had torn apart other parts of the world in decades past. "You think they'll ever update this gear?" Emily said, kicking at an old rifle lying on a table nearby. "Feels like we're using stuff from a museum." Ryan chuckled. "Maybe if we're lucky, they'll upgrade us before the aliens show up." He winked, clearly joking. Neither of them believed Earth would face an extraterrestrial threat anytime soon. Movies and books had painted vivid pictures of alien invasions, but those were just stories meant to entertain. Real life wasn't like that, or so they thought. Unbeknownst to them, thousands of light years away, the Zorathian fleet was already en route to Earth. Massive ships bristling with weapons cut through the void of space, their commanders eager to claim another planet for their empire. For years, they had scouted distant worlds, conquering civilizations with ease. Humanity, with its fragile bodies and limited technology, seemed no different from the countless others they had crushed. As the days passed, Ryan and his team continued their training routines, unaware of the storm heading their way. They'd practiced ambushes, defensive maneuvers, and target practice, all standard procedures designed to keep them sharp, but none of it prepared them for what was coming. None of it could have. And then, one fateful morning, the sky above Chicago darkened. The sun disappeared behind a shadow that stretched across the horizon. People stopped in their tracks, staring upward in confusion and fear. A low rumble shook the ground as enormous ships descended from the heavens, their metallic surfaces gleaming menacingly in the dim light. Panic erupted almost instantly. Cars screeched to a halt. Phones buzzed with frantic calls, and screams filled the air. Back at the base, Ryan and Emily exchanged shocked glances. This wasn't part of the drill. Without hesitation, Ryan grabbed his rifle and barked orders to his team. "Move. Get to your positions." As chaos unfolded around them, one thing became clear. The humans weren't ready for this fight. But they wouldn't go down without a struggle. The ground trembled as the alien ships hovered above the city, their massive forms casting long shadows over the streets. Explosions erupted in the distance, sending plumes of smoke into the sky. Buildings crumbled under the sheer force of the invaders' arrival, and the once bustling streets of Chicago were now filled with terrified screams. People ran in every direction, desperate to escape the destruction raining down upon them. At the military base outside the city, Captain Ryan Carter shouted orders to his team, trying to keep everyone focused despite the chaos. "Stay calm. Stick to the plan." His voice was firm, but inside, he felt a knot of fear tightening in his chest. He had never faced anything like this before. None of them had. Lieutenant Emily Dawson moved quickly, helping soldiers load weapons and organize supplies. Her mind raced as she tried to process what was happening. Just moments ago, they had been going about their usual drills, unaware that an alien invasion was even possible. Now they were fighting for survival against an enemy they didn't understand. The first wave of Zorathian drones descended on the base, their sleek, insect-like shapes gliding silently through the air. They fired beams of energy that cut through metal and concrete with ease. Ryan and his team ducked for cover behind barricades, returning fire with their rifles. At first, it seemed hopeless. Their bullets bounced harmlessly off the drone's glowing shields. But then, something unexpected happened. One of the soldiers, Corporal Daniel Hayes, noticed a pattern. The shields flickered slightly whenever multiple shots hit the same spot in quick succession. "Concentrate your fire," he yelled, aiming his rifle alongside two others at a single drone. The combined blasts overwhelmed the shield, and the drone exploded in a burst of sparks. Ryan's eyes widened. "That's it. Focus fire on one target at a time," he shouted. The team adjusted their tactics, working together to take down the remaining drones. It wasn't easy. Every shot counted, and there was no room for error. But slowly, they began to push back against the invaders. News of their success spread quickly. Other units across the country heard about the tactic and started using it too. In New York, Sergeant Lisa Monroe led a group of civilians who had picked up whatever weapons they could find. Together, they defended a hospital from a Zorathian assault, using concentrated fire to bring down the attackers. In Los Angeles, Dr. Alan Blake, a physicist working at a research lab, studied fragments of destroyed drones. He discovered that the shields relied on a specific frequency to operate, which gave him an idea for how to disable them more effectively. Back at the Zorathian command ship orbiting Earth, Viral watched the reports coming in with growing unease. The humans were adapting faster than anyone had anticipated. Their primitive weapons might not have matched Zorathian technology, but their ingenuity and teamwork were proving to be formidable assets. He approached Kale, hoping to convince him to reconsider their strategy. "Leader Kale," Viral said cautiously, "the humans are learning. If we don't adapt, we risk losing our advantage." Kale scoffed, waving a hand dismissively. "They're nothing but insects scrambling in the dirt. Even if they manage to destroy a few drones, it won't change the outcome. This planet is ours." Viral wanted to argue further, but he knew better than to challenge Cal directly. Instead, he retreated to his quarters, deep in thought. There had to be a way to turn things around, if not for the sake of the mission, then for the sake of his own survival. On Earth, the fight continued. Ryan and his team regrouped after repelling the initial attack, assessing their losses and planning their next move. Supplies were running low, and reinforcements were still hours away. But despite the odds, morale remained high. For the first time, in what felt like forever, Ryan allowed himself a small smile. "We've got them on the ropes," he said to Emily as they reviewed their ammunition stockpile. "If we can keep this up, maybe we'll stand a chance." Emily nodded, though her expression was grim. "Let's just hope the rest of the world figures it out too." As night fell, the glow of fires lit up the horizon. The battle was far from over, but one thing was clear. Humanity wasn't going to go quietly into the night. The fight against the Zorathians was far from over, but Ryan and his team knew they couldn't win alone. Earth's scattered military units were struggling to hold their ground, and communication between them was spotty at best. They needed a way to work together if they hoped to survive. That's when Emily suggested reaching out to other groups. Using an old satellite radio, Emily managed to contact Sergeant Lisa Monroe in New York. Lisa had been leading a group of civilians turned fighters after the invasion began. Her voice crackled over the line, tired but determined. "We've been holding our own here," she said, "but we're running low on ammo and medical supplies. What's your situation?" Ryan stepped in, explaining their recent success with focused fire and shield weaknesses. "If we can share tactics and resources, maybe we can turn this around," he said. Lisa agreed, promising to spread the word to other survivors in her area. Over the next few hours, more groups joined the makeshift network, sharing what they had learned and coordinating efforts. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Dr. Alan Blake worked tirelessly in his lab. He had salvaged pieces of alien drones and was analyzing their technology. His hands moved quickly as he connected wires and adjusted dials on his equipment. Finally, he found something important. The shields used by the Zorathians operated on a specific energy frequency. If they could disrupt that frequency, the shields would fail completely. Alan shared his discovery with Ryan and the others through the growing communication network. "We need to build devices that emit a counter-frequency," he explained. "It won't be easy, but it's possible with the right tools." Ryan immediately assigned some of his engineers to work with Alan remotely, pooling their knowledge to create prototypes. As the human resistance grew stronger, so did their determination. In Chicago, Ryan led his team in setting up defensive positions around key locations, including hospitals and supply depots. Emily took charge of organizing patrols to scout for enemy movements. Together, they ensured that no one was caught off guard again. Back on the Zorathian command ship, Viral watched the reports of human resilience with growing concern. The humans were not only adapting but also finding ways to exploit the weaknesses in Zorathian technology. He knew Kel wouldn't listen to reason, but Viral couldn't shake the feeling that the invasion was spiraling out of control. Desperate for answers, Viral secretly accessed the communication logs between the humans. To his surprise, he found evidence of their growing cooperation and technological breakthroughs. For the first time, he felt a flicker of admiration for these fragile creatures who refused to give up. But admiration wasn't enough. He needed to act. Viral reached out to the humans using a secure channel, knowing full well the risk he was taking. When Ryan received the message, he was skeptical at first. "You expect us to trust you?" he asked, narrowing his eyes at the screen displaying Viral's transmission. "I'm offering you critical intel," Viral replied calmly. "Information about the mothership's defenses, weak points in their strategy. Use it wisely, and you might stand a chance." Emily stepped forward, her tone firm but curious. "What do you want in return?" "Safe passage once the war is over," Viral answered without hesitation. "I don't agree with Cal's methods, and I believe humanity deserves a fighting chance." After a brief discussion, Ryan decided to accept Viral's offer. At least for now. They couldn't afford to ignore any advantage, even if it came from an unlikely source. With Viral's help, they began planning their next move, a daring strike at the heart of the Zorathian fleet. As the plan took shape, the humans prepared themselves for the most dangerous mission of their lives. Supplies were gathered, weapons were checked, and strategies were rehearsed until everyone knew their role by heart. Ryan looked at his team, seeing the exhaustion in their eyes, but also the unyielding resolve that had kept them going this far. "We've come too far to back down now," Ryan said, his voice steady. "This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about showing them, and ourselves, that we won't be broken." The stage was set for a final confrontation. Humanity had proven its strength, but the hardest part was yet to come. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance. Ryan and his team knew that taking down the Zorathian mothership would cripple the invaders' ability to coordinate their attacks. With Viral's intel, they had a rough map of the ship's layout and its defenses, but getting inside wouldn't be easy. The mothership was heavily guarded, its corridors patrolled by elite Zorathian soldiers. Ryan gathered his strike team in a hidden underground bunker. Alongside him were Emily, Lisa, Alan, and a few others who had proven themselves in battle. Each member of the team had a specific role. Emily would handle navigation using the stolen maps, Lisa would lead combat operations, and Alan carried the prototype device designed to disrupt the shields. The rest of the group would provide cover and support. Before leaving, Ryan addressed the team one last time. "This mission is dangerous, and we all know it," he said, his voice calm but serious. "But if we succeed, we can turn the tide of this war. Stick to the plan, watch each other's backs, and remember why we're doing this." He looked at each person, meeting their eyes. For Earth, the journey to the mothership began under the cover of darkness. A stolen alien shuttle, modified by Alan, carried them through the atmosphere and toward the massive vessel looming in orbit. As they approached, the shuttle systems emitted a signal Viral had provided, tricking the mothership into thinking it was one of their own ships. The docking bay doors opened, and the team slipped inside unnoticed. Once aboard, the real challenge began. The corridors were dimly lit, lined with strange alien technology and humming with energy. Emily consulted the map on her tablet, guiding the group through twisting passages while avoiding patrols. At one point, they froze as a squad of Zorathian soldiers marched past, their armored boots clanking against the metal floor. Holding their breath, the humans pressed themselves against the wall until the danger passed. As they moved deeper into the ship, the tension grew thicker. Every corner felt like a potential ambush, every sound a possible threat. Then, disaster struck. A patrol spotted them near a junction, and alarms blared throughout the ship. "We've been made," Lisa shouted, raising her weapon. Bullets and energy blasts flew as the team fought back. Corporal Daniel Hayes stepped forward, firing repeatedly to hold off the attackers. "Keep moving," he yelled over the chaos. "I'll cover you." "No, Daniel," Ryan shouted, but there was no time to argue. Daniel stayed behind, laying down suppressive fire until the corridor erupted in flames, consuming him and the enemy soldiers. Tears stung Ryan's eyes, but he forced himself to keep going. Daniel had given them a chance. They couldn't waste it. The team finally reached the command center, a vast chamber filled with glowing consoles and holographic displays. In the center stood Kale, the Zorathian leader, flanked by guards. His expression shifted from surprise to rage as he saw the humans. "How dare you set foot here?" he roared, drawing a weapon. Emily and Lisa worked quickly, setting up Alan's device while Ryan and the others engaged the guards in a fierce firefight. Bullets ricocheted off walls, and energy beams lit up the room. Amid the chaos, Viral appeared, stepping out from a hidden entrance. He raised his weapon and fired, not at the humans, but at Kale. Kale staggered, clutching his side. "Traitor," he spat, collapsing to the ground. Before the remaining guards could react, Viral turned to Ryan. "You have minutes before reinforcements arrive," he said urgently. "Finish your mission." With seconds to spare, Alan activated the device. A high-pitched whine filled the air as waves of energy pulsed outward, disabling the shields across the entire ship. Cheers erupted from the team, but there was no time to celebrate. They grabbed Viral and retreated, racing back to the shuttle as alarms blared louder than ever. As they escaped the mothership, the human forces on Earth launched their counterattack. Fighters armed with modified weapons tore through the now vulnerable alien fleet, turning the tide of the war. Ryan watched from the shuttle window, a mix of pride and sorrow in his heart. They had won, for now, but the cost had been high. The counterattack was swift and devastating. With the Zorathian shields disabled, Earth's forces launched everything they had at the alien fleet. Fighter jets streaked across the sky, their missiles finding their marks with deadly precision. Ground troops, armed with weapons modified to exploit the shield weakness, pushed back against the invaders. The once mighty Zorathian armada began to crumble under the relentless assault. Back on the stolen shuttle, Ryan and his team watched the chaos unfold from above. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as human fighters tore through the enemy ships. Emily gripped the edge of her seat, her knuckles white, while Lisa stared out the window, her jaw clenched in determination. Alan sat quietly, clutching the prototype device that had made all of this possible. Viral, the traitorous Zorathian who had helped them, remained silent, his expression unreadable. "We did it," Ryan said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was soft, but filled with awe. "We actually did it." But the victory wasn't without its scars. Daniel's sacrifice weighed heavily on everyone's minds. He had given his life to ensure the mission's success, and his absence left a void no one could fill. Ryan clenched his fists, vowing silently that Daniel's bravery wouldn't be forgotten. As the shuttle descended back toward Earth, the team prepared for what came next. The war might have been won, but the aftermath would be long and difficult. Cities lay in ruins, millions were displaced, and the scars of battle would take years to heal. But for the first time in weeks, there was hope. Humanity had faced an unimaginable threat and emerged victorious, not through superior technology, but through sheer willpower and ingenuity. When they landed, Ryan and his team were greeted as heroes. News of their daring mission had spread quickly, and people cheered as they stepped off the shuttle. Reporters swarmed them, asking questions about how they had managed to turn the tide. Ryan held up a hand, silencing the crowd. "This wasn't just our victory," he said firmly. "It belongs to every man, woman, and child who refused to give up. We fought together, and because of that, we survived." In the days that followed, the world began the slow process of rebuilding. Teams of engineers and scientists worked alongside Dr. Alan Blake to study the captured alien technology, hoping to use it to advance humanity's own capabilities. Lisa returned to New York, where she helped organize relief efforts for those affected by the invasion. Her leadership inspired countless others to join the recovery mission. Emily stayed close to Ryan, the two of them forming a bond forged in the fires of war. They spent hours discussing what the future might hold, not just for themselves, but for humanity as a whole. "Do you think they'll come back?" Emily asked one evening, staring at the stars. Ryan shook his head. "I don't know, but if they do, we'll be ready." He smiled faintly. "They underestimated us once. They won't make that mistake again." Viral, meanwhile, found himself adjusting to life among humans. At first, he kept to himself, unsure of how he would be received. But over time, he realized that these fragile creatures were stronger than he had ever imagined. Their resilience, creativity, and compassion fascinated him. He began working with Alan, sharing what he knew about Zorathian technology in exchange for a place in their world. Kel's death marked the end of the Zorathian invasion, but whispers of his failure reached other civilizations across the galaxy. On distant planets, leaders watched and wondered, could humanity truly be as dangerous as the rumors suggested? Some dismissed the stories as exaggerations, while others saw them as a warning. One thing was certain: Earth was no longer seen as an easy target. As the sun rose over a battered but defiant planet, humanity took its first steps into a new era. The scars of war remained, but so did the lessons learned. Courage, unity, and determination had saved them once, and they knew those qualities would guide them forward. For the first time, the stars didn't seem so far away. Weeks passed, and the world slowly began to heal. The scars of the invasion were everywhere: burnt-out buildings, empty streets, and makeshift memorials for those who had lost their lives. But amidst the wreckage, there was a sense of renewal. People came together in ways they never had before, working side by side to rebuild their homes and communities. In Chicago, Ryan stood on a hill overlooking the city. Construction crews were hard at work repairing roads and erecting new structures. The sound of hammers echoed through the air, mingling with the laughter of children playing in a nearby park. It was a fragile piece, but it was enough to remind him why they had fought so hard. Emily walked up beside him, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Ryan and took a sip from her own. "It's going to take time," she said softly, following his gaze. "But we'll get there." Ryan nodded. "Yeah, we will." He paused, glancing at her. "You ever think about what's next? Not just for us, but for Earth?" Emily smiled faintly. "All the time. We've proven we can handle ourselves against an alien threat. Maybe it's time we started looking beyond our planet, exploring, learning, showing the universe that we're more than just survivors. Her words stayed with Ryan long after their conversation ended. Humanity had been forced to grow stronger, smarter, and braver because of the invasion. Now, with access to alien technology and the knowledge gained from their victory, the possibilities seemed endless. Meanwhile, in New York, Lisa Monroe worked tirelessly to help her city rise from the ashes. She coordinated volunteer efforts, organized food and supply drives, and even helped design temporary housing for displaced families. Her leadership earned her widespread respect, and many began to see her as a symbol of hope. Late at night, when the work was done, she would sit by her window and stare at the stars, wondering if other civilizations were watching Earth now, and what they thought of them. Dr. Alan Blake continued his research into Zorathian technology, collaborating closely with Viral. Together, they made breakthroughs that could change the course of human history. They discovered new energy sources, advanced materials, and even hints of faster-than-light travel. For Alan, it felt like stepping into a dream he'd had since childhood, a chance to unlock the secrets of the universe. Viral, for his part, found himself increasingly drawn to humanity. At first, he had seen them as weak and primitive, but now he admired their resilience and creativity. He often joined Alan in giving lectures to scientists and engineers, sharing insights about Zorathian culture and technology. Though some humans still distrusted him, most welcomed him as an ally, and, eventually, as a friend. Far away, in the distant reaches of space, news of Earth's victory spread. Other civilizations whispered about the humans who had defied the odds and defeated the mighty Zorathians. Some saw them as a potential ally, while others viewed them as a threat. Leaders debated whether to reach out or stay hidden, unsure of how humanity might react. On Earth, monuments were built to honor the fallen. In Chicago, a statue of Corporal Daniel Hayes was unveiled in the center of town. His name became synonymous with bravery and sacrifice, inspiring future generations. Ryan attended the ceremony, standing quietly as people placed flowers at the base of the statue. Emily stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Ryan felt a deep sense of gratitude for his team, for humanity, and for the future that lay ahead. The road wouldn't always be easy, but they had faced the worst and come out stronger. "We did good," Emily said, breaking the silence. "Yeah," Ryan replied, smiling, "and we're just getting started." Months turned into years, and Earth transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The scars of the invasion remained, but they became reminders of resilience rather than defeat. Cities rebuilt themselves stronger and smarter, incorporating alien technology into their designs. Skyscrapers gleamed with energy-efficient panels, and vehicles powered by advanced engines traveled silently along clean streets. Humanity had taken a leap forward, driven by the lessons learned during the war. Ryan Carter spent much of his time traveling, speaking to crowds about unity and courage. He visited schools, military bases, and community centers, sharing stories of how ordinary people had done extraordinary things. His speeches always ended with the same message: "We proved that we're capable of greatness when we stand together. Let's never forget that." Emily Dawson stayed by his side, her role shifting from soldier to strategist. She worked with governments around the world to establish new defense systems, ensuring Earth would never be caught off guard again. Together, she and Ryan became symbols of hope, not just for their heroism, but for their belief in humanity's potential. In New York, Lisa Monroe continued her work as a leader and advocate. She helped create programs to support veterans and civilians affected by the war, making sure no one was left behind. Her efforts earned her national recognition, but she remained humble, always saying, "I didn't do this alone. None of us did." Dr. Alan Blake's research opened doors humanity had only dreamed of. With Viral's help, he developed technologies that improved life on Earth: clean energy sources, medical advancements, and even early prototypes for space exploration vehicles. For the first time, the stars felt within reach, not as distant lights, but as destinations waiting to be explored. Viral, once an outsider, found a home among humans. He marveled at their ability to adapt, to dream, and to persevere. Though he still missed his own people, he knew he had made the right choice. Humans weren't perfect. They argued, doubted, and sometimes stumbled, but they never gave up. That was something worth fighting for. As Earth flourished, whispers of its victory reached farther corners of the galaxy. Some civilizations admired humanity's strength and ingenuity, sending messages of peace and curiosity. Others watched cautiously, uncertain whether to approach or retreat. But one thing was clear: Earth was no longer seen as weak or insignificant. It was a planet to be respected, and perhaps feared. On a quiet evening, Ryan and Emily stood on a hill outside Chicago, staring at the night sky. Stars twinkled above them, each one a mystery waiting to be unraveled. "Do you think we'll ever go out there?" Emily asked, pointing upward. Ryan smiled. "Not just think. It's going to happen. We've already started. Who knows what's out there? Maybe friends, maybe foes. Either way, we'll be ready." The future was full of unknowns, but humanity faced it with confidence. They had stared down an alien invasion and emerged victorious. Now they looked to the stars not with fear, but with determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they knew they could overcome them, together. And so, Earth entered a new chapter. Its people carried the memories of those who had fallen, honoring their sacrifices by building a brighter tomorrow. Monuments stood tall, stories were passed down, and dreams grew larger than ever before. Humanity had proven itself stronger than anyone thought possible, even themselves. Far away, in the vastness of space, other beings watched and whispered, "Never underestimate the humans."